shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So I'll be reviewing one last Christmas movie for 2024. I said I would review 3 of them. The first one was Scrooged, which I really enjoyed, always have. I've seen it several times in my life. Then White Christmas, which is also quite good, and one I probably would see again for sure. I really enjoyed that picture. Never seen it before, with Bing Crosby. And then I said there would be a third one. So this one ends on a sour note because it's more of the dark side of Christmas. So what movie am I talking about? Well, it's 1984's Silent Night, Deadly Night. Never seen this movie. Heard about it for many years. Never really felt the need to actually watch it until now. So, I am not a 80s slasher film completist, but I will say when I heard about this film first, obviously that year, 1984, and that there was a protest, and that the protesters were a group named Citizens Against Movie Madness, which never quite lasted. But they did try to have this movie banned, to take it from theaters, and they more or less did succeed. In addition to Gene Siskel on the Siskel and Ebert show, also telling people basically not to see this movie, that it was about Santa Claus armed with an axe killing people. Well, actually, it's not Santa Claus per se. It's a mentally ill guy, a young guy, dressed up as Santa Claus. So he goes around and kills some people with an axe. Yes. The marketing campaign emphasized that, and of course they would. Why wouldn't they? I mean, this was the era of Friday the 13th. So slasher picture made for $750,000. They got to get all the mileage they can get out of their campaign. And the campaign, as I had shown the opening of the show, is pretty effective. I mean, it's Santa's arm carrying an axe as he's emerging or lowering himself into a chimney. Now, the picture itself, I have to tell you, is a bore. It is boring. It's just, it is so tedious. It was difficult for me to even stay awake watching it. There is nothing of any interest in this picture. There's no rooting interest whatsoever. This young guy who decides to go around killing people as Santa Claus does it really in the latter half of the picture. It's not the whole entire movie. It's not dedicated to this sort of inventive idea, I guess, although it had been done before. Notably, Tales from the Crypt, and also a picture which I have not seen that I heard is actually a lot better, called Christmas Evil, alternate title, You Better Watch Out, from 1980. That one I'd be curious to see. I don't know if I'll see it within the next couple of days after seeing this one, but we'll see. Anyhow, so this mentally ill young man, Billy Chapman, at the beginning of the film, he is a young kid. He's 5 years old, and the parents are on this ride to a mental institution because the kid's grandfather is there, and he's virtually catatonic. And he's wondering, in the car ride, he's wondering, can I get home before Santa gets there? I don't want to miss Santa. He says, well, you got to be asleep or Santa will not give you presents, that kind of thing. So then they visit the grandfather, and the grandfather is completely catatonic. This is the same guy, by the way, who appeared later on in Back to the Future. The one that has the pine tree business. And Michael J. Fox's DeLorean crashes into one of them. You killed one of my pines. Well, that's the guy that plays the catatonic grandfather. And as soon as the parents leave the room and leave their child with the grandfather then looks at the young child and then says, have you been naughty? And this kind of thing. This is a recurring line in the picture. And sort of, I guess, the theme of the picture, which is why I guess it's suitable to call it a Christmas movie, just a very dark one. And have you been naughty? And if you're naughty, Santa's going to come and get you. And then when the parents get out of the room after seeing the doctor, then he's back to being catatonic. Very strange stuff there. So then, this is right at the beginning of the movie. Afterwards, they're driving off, and then we cut to a scene where a guy dressed as Santa holds up a liquor store, kills the cashier, shoots him, takes $31 out of the cash register. Oh, $31, that's it, huh? Bastard, you know. And I thought, well, at least, you know, $31 in 1984, you know, went a lot further than $31 today. But anyhow. And then he sees the family coming in a car, and he's just standing there next to this other vehicle. And so then they say, do you have car trouble? And then this guy dressed as Santa shoots the father, doesn't shoot the mother, but shoots the father. The mother's holding a baby. Prior to that, the young kid, Billy, takes off from the car. I mean, he runs the hell out before even, you know, as Santa's in there shooting the father. He takes off. Or I think he took off just before, but anyhow, runs behind the bushes. Never mind my baby, you know, my baby brother in there, or my mother, or the fact that my father now is dead. And then the mother is taken out of the car by Santa, and of course, typical 80s slasher bullshit, opens her blouse, and there she's exposed her breasts, and he's ready to rape her, and she's trying to stop him, and then he cuts her throat. Very exciting stuff, I have to say. And then the guy is looking in the woods, you know, because it's a woodsy area, right in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, essentially taunting this young kid. Where are you? Where are you? And it kind of leaves that open. So we never know really what happens to this particular Santa Claus, but we do know what happens to Billy. So Billy eventually ends up at an orphanage run by a very strict and pretty violent nun named Mother Superior. I mean, she is not pleasant. And she also stresses the naughtiness. You're seeing naughty things. So, for example, he sees a Billy, witnesses through a keyhole at one of these rooms, with the door closed, a young couple making love, you know, having sex, and he witnesses it, but he doesn't understand it, doesn't know what it's about. Mother Superior catches him. She goes in, and this young couple, I don't know who they are, at this orphanage. I assume they work there, but I don't know. She starts hitting them with a belt. Then she asks him, what did you see? Do you know what you saw? And he says, oh, I no, I don't know. You didn't understand what you saw? No, I didn't. Okay. And then, of course, she also hits him with the belt. Because you're being naughty, even though he didn't understand that there was a naughtiness taking place in that room. So that further causes PTSD in this young kid. Not to mention this Santa Claus. And actually, earlier, there is a drawing, a very violent drawing that he has created for the class. And all these young kids are really horrified, and Mother Superior punishes him then, puts him in a room and says, you got to stay there. We got to work this through. The young nun, a young nun that works there at the orphanage, she tells Mother Superior, we have to work with this kid. He's been through something really traumatic, you know, because the movie shifts 4 years later, prior to this traumatic incident. And Mother Superior doesn't want to hear it, and blah, blah, blah. We have to teach him, you know, let's do it my way, instead of giving him therapy and everything else that he probably would need. Then we cut to 10 years later, and now Billy is 18 years old and is no longer at the orphanage, but he does manage to get a job as a stock boy at a toy store called Ira's Toys. So the young nun that we see earlier, who feels sympathetic towards him, gets him the job at this place. And he seems to do pretty well, pretty friendly with the customers, but as soon as he sees a guy dressed in Santa, the PTSD kicks in, and he can't handle it, he collapses, and so on. And apparently he's not that good a stock boy after a while, because I guess he has this problem with Christmas, of course. And why wouldn't he? Naturally. So, at first, I knew about this movie. I didn't know the whole story of this picture, the plot. if that's what you want to call it, but it starts to develop into something, for sure. I knew it wasn't going to stick with it, but I knew I had that, so I knew that. But I figured here there was something that they could have really developed into something, hopefully a little deeper, almost like a character study. But that's not what this movie is. This is not a character study movie. Robert Brian Wilson, who plays Billy at 18, is fairly bland. He's not very interesting. That might actually fit the character to a certain extent. None of these characters are really very interesting. And what happens is he is put in a position. This is the plot twist of the movie, I guess, what led to the outcry. The toy store owner, Iris Toys, tells him, well, you know, we don't, the guy that was supposed to be dressed up as Santa, he got into some sort of accident. You need to dress up as Santa. Now, you would think that this kid would have been, it would have been almost impossible, considering he collapsed at the sight of seeing somebody dressed as Santa. Now, dressing up as Santa, he's going to do this, and of course he does. And he's dressed up, and everything seems fine. And then he's sitting, you know, and there are a bunch of, there's a line of kids coming in, and they sit on his lap. Okay? And he tells this one young girl, hey, stop fidgeting. Stop it. Have you been naughty? I mean, this could almost be a comedy, really. But the problem with the movie is that it's just so bland. It's so tedious. It's not really particularly very well staged. And also, it doesn't make much sense, because then there's a Christmas party. It's Christmas Eve. And he sees this young woman he's interested in, who he imagines a sexual fantasy with, until, of course, she's killed in his sexual fantasy. And he wakes up screaming. He sees her, rather, talking to this other guy, an employee, and he is a piece of crap, to say the least. They go into the back room, the back stock room. He sees them, and he's trying to rape her. So he takes the Christmas lights, Billy, and strangles the guy, and which obviously is a step too far, rather than just maybe punching him and knocking him out. And then the girl, she says, "Oh my God, you're crazy," or this and that and the other. And of course she has her blouse open, naturally, so you can see her exposed breasts. And again, it's an 80s slasher movie. You know, what else? So then he guts her. Just kills her. And says, "You've been naughty." Again, this could almost be a comedy. Then, for whatever reason, he kills the toy shop owner, I guess because they would find out then what it is that he's doing. He doesn't want that. Billy kills the toy shop owner, then kills one of the cashiers with a crossbow. And then he takes off from the toy store. So, okay, maybe he didn't want any witnesses to what it is that he had just done. He's now murdered quite a few people. Takes off, goes to some neighboring house where Linnea Quigley, of all people, is, and she's having sex with a guy on top of a pool table. And she's supposed to be babysitting. So the young girl is coming down the stairs and says, "Oh, Santa, you know, I want to come downstairs. Where's Santa?" You know, that type of thing. She says, no, go back to the room where Santa won't come in," and blah, blah, blah. So she goes back, and they're about to have sex, but she hears these jingle bells jangling somewhere. Like, oh, maybe it's the cat trying to come in. And so she goes to the door, and again, Linnea Quigley, of course. I mean, I guess in those days, this is what we expected from Linnea Quigley. Her breasts are once again exposed. And she opens the door, the cat comes in, and there's Billy, and with the axe, chases her around, impales her on deer antlers that are, you know, on the wall. And then the young guy finds him. They kind of have some fisticuffs, and then Billy throws this guy through the window. And then he falls and dies. The problem with this movie is just it's tedious. It doesn't really go anywhere. I will say, though, it seemed to start off in an interesting fashion, even though I knew where it was going to be leading, because it's a slasher picture. But it doesn't mean that a slasher picture be nothing but just the slashing. It can be something more. And this movie is nothing more. So, the actors are not that terrific. The film is not very well staged. The cops come, trying to look for this guy dressed as Santa Claus killing people. And eventually, the young nun goes to the police and discovers that, you know what, he has a sickness, but I want to help him. And the chief of police says, well, where do you think he's going to go? He says, well, if I bet you he'll probably be at the orphanage. And of course, they go to the orphanage. One cop kills a Santa that's approaching kids daylight hours on Christmas Day. Turns out it's not Santa, but he's shot 3 times by a cop. He's not holding any weapons, this one Santa. So he could have, but it turns out this was a priest who was a little bit deaf. Then Billy arrives, and then we have a long delayed scene of this one cop looking around, and he sees a door open. He goes down there, he doesn't see anything, and then, of course, he's killed with an axe. And then Billy confronts Mother Superior, who now is confined to a wheelchair. And there are all these young kids, and he's ready to swing the axe. Sorry, spoiler alert, I'm giving away the ending. And he's shot by the chief of police or the sheriff, whatever the hell he was. And then the young nun is there. So one of the kids is actually Billy's younger brother. So Billy and his younger brother ended up at that orphanage. And he looks up, he sees his brother's dead, looks up at Mother Superior and says, "You've been naughty." That's set up for a sequel, of course. But this movie is not, it's not offensive to me. It's just silly. And the whole thing is counterproductive, really. It's just an average slasher film. It's no different than anything else that you might have seen in the 80s. And most of them, I hate to say it, they're just boring. They're not really good. Friday the 13th movies were not interesting. They were not fun. They were not upbeat. There was nothing to them. I would say Halloween and Halloween 2 and the Nightmare on Elm Street series I really liked. But beyond that, none of the slasher pictures I've seen merit any close introspection of any kind at all, including this movie. So I guess it is a Christmas movie. It's celebrated, I guess, in a way as a cult film. But if this film had not been set on Christmas, and had some guy around with an axe, nobody would have cared, and this movie would have been forgotten completely. But because of all the controversy at that time, not to mention the fact, by the way, that the movie was then re-released in theaters in, I believe, May of the following year. I never understood what the hell was going on there, except they were trying to recoup their costs, I guess. Which they did, because the box office, according to what I read here, was $2.5 million. So they made their money back, I guess, with a couple of re-releases. There was also re-released in 2013, and also this movie has been remade, and they're looking to remake it yet again. There's got to be some good stories out there that even if you want to do a slasher film, are much better than this. This is indistinguishable from any other slasher picture. So, those are my thoughts on Silent Night, Deadly Night. There's not a whole lot more to say. I think I spent too much time talking about this. I was just bored by it. It's just tedious. And if some of you really like seeing the kills in a movie, this movie is not really that gory at all. It's not upsetting. It didn't bother me. It didn't offend me. I didn't care. I just didn't care. I couldn't even imagine in 1984 anyone cared. Why I just don't know. Sometimes you wonder. But anyhow, I saw it and I'm done with it. I'll never see this movie again, that's for sure. Let me your thoughts. Tell me if you've seen Silent Night, Deadly Night, or its infinite number of sequels, or its remake, or whatever. What do you think of it? I'd like to hear your opinions out there. Thank you to the new subscribers that have accumulated in the last few days, more or less. And if you aren't a subscriber, please subscribe to my channel. I do review movies of all kinds and discuss cinematically related topics. And if you are a subscriber, please hit the notification bell for future uploads. That's all I gotta say about Silent Night, Deadly Night. And this is Jerry Saravia at the movies, wishing all of you a Merry Christmas. Signing off.